It's been 84 years.
I would like to start off this speech by asking you a question that I would like you to think about yourself and answer in your head. Why do so many of us find the Titanic so interesting? The tragic sinking of the Titanic had taken the nation by complete and utter surprise, thus highlighting the need to look at ships during that time and revise their current safety procedures and safety equipment. The reason I chose this topic is because of the love and interest I have had for the Titanic since I was a little girl. And yes, of course, that started because of the movie with Jack and Rose. And Jack could have fit on that door. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Could Jack have fit on that door? I have no comment.
He just should have tried harder to get on that door.
Since then, I have indulged in my own personal research about the Titanic. Now, let's dive into the history of the most fascinating and well-known ship in history. The first thing I'm going to go over is the history of the ship, and I am going to talk about the physical work that went into building the Titanic. And then I am going to go into the overall safety of the Titanic, including the safety procedures and equipment they had on board at the time, and what they did safety-wise during the sinking of the ship. Lastly, I am going to go over how the sinking of the Titanic impacted future ships and their safety measures, which would be an updated version of current safety procedures, what different adjustments or new safety equipment they have on current ships. The Titanic was operated by the White Star Line and was the second of 3 Olympic-class ocean liners, which included the older sister ship, Olympic, built in 1911, and then the younger sister ship, Britannica, built in 1914. The Titanic was built by a British shipbuilding company called Harland and Wolff at their site in Belfast, the capital of Northern Ireland. The building of the Titanic originally began in 1909. Harland and Wolff employed approximately 14,000 men to build all 3 of these ships. It took over a year to fully frame the Titanic. It also took over 3 million rivets to hold the steel in place, and the shell plating was completed in October of 1910. The hull of the Titanic had 29 boilers about 2 stories tall, which also contained 159 furnaces that powered the 2 largest ever built reciprocating engines. The Titanic was at the time called the virtually unsinkable ship due to the watertight construction. It had 15 watertight bulkheads dividing the ship into 16 compartments. The idea behind this was if 4 smaller compartments flooded, the boat would still float. The problem with the Titanic's bulkheads was they only reached about 10 feet above the waterline, allowing it to go from one compartment to the other, rendering the bulkheads practically useless in this situation. In May 1911, the interior work of the Titanic began. Everything on board was either brand new or designed specifically for the ship to make sure the passengers were comfortable. Throughout their voyage across the sea, the most iconic part of Titanic's impressive style was, of course, the Grand Staircase. On April 2nd, 8 days before her big voyage, the Titanic completed its sea trials and was deemed ready to set sail. I am going to talk about the lifeboats that were on board of the Titanic. In total, there were 20 lifeboats, 14 of which had the capacity of 65 people. 4 other boats had the capacity of 47 people. And the remaining 2 boats had the capacity of 40 people, which would accommodate 1,178 people total. Each of these boats carried things such as food, water, and blankets, and a spare lifebelt. The Titanic had 16 sets of davits. A davit is a crane-like machine.
That's a big word for Alma.
Crane-like device on a ship to help support, raise, and lower the lifeboats. And each of these were able to hold 4 lifeboats together. Overall, the 16 set of davits were able to hold 4 lifeboats at a time. This gives the Titanic the ability to hold 64 lifeboats, totaling out to 4,160 people. And the Titanic had approximately 2,224 passengers aboard the ship, of which more than 1,500 souls were lost. During the sinking, the lifeboats were launched half full because the crew had not been trained on how to carry out an evacuation and did not know how many people they could safely fit on the lifeboats. The engineering crew stayed at their positions during the sinking of the ship, continuously working and trying to control the flooding as much as possible. With them doing this, it helped keep the power on so that they could continue to allow the radio system to keep sending distress signals during the sinking of the ship. The devastating disaster of the Titanic changed the future for many boats today. The first example would be the creation of International Ice Patrol, which is an organization that continuously monitors icebergs in the ocean to alert any ships about them when needed. The sinking led to a different way of building ships, which included bulkheads being built higher so that water could not get in, and they started creating double hulls. There was also a radio act that was established in 1912 that required ships to have 24-hour radio system to stay in contact with all other ships on the water. And most obvious would be ships are now required to carry enough lifeboats on board for everyone on the ship. Whether you are intrigued by the Titanic because of an interest or love for ships, random history reasons, a fear of man-made objects that are submerged underwater, any relative relations, or simply just because you watched the movie with Jack and Rose, which I'm going to say it for a second time, Jack could have fit on that door. But this tragic event changed and affected a lot more things than we know.